Well, now to the story, a mother who is suing the Department of Homeland Security for $100 million after a suspected gang member who crossed into the U.S. illegally brutally raped and murdered her daughter. Kayla Hamilton was strangled with a phone cord in July of 2022, days after her 20th birthday. She had autism. Now her mother says if the federal government had properly screened the suspect, they would have realized he was a known member of the infamous MS-13 gang, which would have prevented him from coming into the U.S., and her daughter would still be alive. We are joined now by the victim's mother, Tammy Nobles, and her attorney, Brian Claypool. Thank you both for joining us. Tammy, I'm so sorry for your loss. And I know that you have said that this could have been anyone's daughter. What do you want every American to know?
I want everyone to know what is going on at the border. I had no clue what was going on before my daughter was brutally murdered and raped, but I do now. And I found the story is just so mind-boggling on how nobody at the border did their job and checked his background. All they had to do was make one phone call to El Salvador to know that he was an MS-13 gang member on the list. And it's just crazy how he got from Texas all the way to Maryland to being in the same trailer as my daughter.
Yeah. Tammy, how are you doing? How does your family survive something like this?
The only thing that I can come up with is that it's God is helping me along this path. Nights are really bad. You're just left with your thoughts. I try not to think about what Kayla went through that day, what she was thinking in those last minutes of her life. You can't go down that road, because it will just break you. And I know when we have court on June 28th, it's the trial. It's going to be really, really difficult to see pictures and hear. But I want to know what happened to her. I want to know, a lot more than I do now.
Brian, from the documents and from what you've been delving into so far, how did this happen? Who is at fault for this suspected MS-13 gang member being led into the country?
Hey, Natasha, thanks for having us. I mean, we're bringing this lawsuit because we're tired of being held hostage in our own country. We're tired of the DHS playing Russian roulette with our lives, with Kayla's life. And that's why we brought this case. And we're alleging that two federal agencies catastrophically failed Kayla. And by the way, Natasha, they're failing everybody. I have a teenage daughter. I'm a single parent of a teen daughter. There's a lot of your viewers that have kids. And like Tammy said, this could happen anywhere and to anybody. But DHS it just needs to be held accountable. All they had to do, Natasha, was to follow their own protocol. Lift the T-shirt of this 16-year-old young man that was trying to enter the border. They would have seen a gang-related tattoo. And guess what? That would have disqualified him from entering this country. He should have been sent back at that very second to El Salvador. But it gets worse, like Tammy said. Secondly, all they had to do is pick up the phone, make a phone call, and guess what? On the list in El Salvador was this young man, because he was arrested in July of 2020 for being involved in an illicit MS-13 gang. He would have been disqualified again from entering the country. But it gets even worse. DHHS, Health and Human Services, was responsible, Natasha, for putting him into a holding facility for a couple of days and then making a phone call and confirming that this young man had what's called a verified sponsor, a relative, a known verified relative. Even though DHS let him in, he still can't get into the United States unless he's going to a known relative. Well, they blew it too, and they're going to pay the price, because he then he runs away, by the way, a month after he goes to this alleged verified sponsor, and then it gets even worse. He ends up in this trailer home as a roommate with lovely Kayla that was leased out by another illegal immigrant. So we're done with this. The federal government has blood on their hands, and they owed us a duty, Natasha. They owed a duty to protect Kayla and others in this country, and we're going to bring change to this lawsuit.
Tammy, what is the hardest part about all of this?
The hardest part is it could have been prevented. I could still have my daughter if they would have just done their job.
And Tammy, lastly, what would you like us to know about your daughter?
She was a sweetheart, very loving, very happy. The best thing that describes her is we played it at her memorial was girls just want to have fun. She looked at life, you know, very trusting. She was trusting. She had a great outlook on life, and I know she had no clue the evilness in this world.
Tammy Nobles and Brian Claypool, I truly appreciate your time tonight, and I know we'll continue to track this lawsuit. Tammy, wishing you and your family healing and all the best. Thank you so much for sharing with us tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.